My weekend is all booked. I mean, how cute is that? Happy New Year, everyone. I've noticed that everyone is posting these like reading wrap-ups of every book that they read in 2022. I read 27 books this year to try to keep it relatively short, but I also like watching the 2022 wrap-up yearly things on YouTube right now, so I'm gonna do my own. The first book I read this year was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Did not live up to the hype, but I don't think any book can physically live up to the hype that the Colleen Hoover stans made over TikTok about this one. I gave it a 4 stars, but it wasn't really a 4-star read, if that makes sense. I don't really like her writing, I don't really like her romance, but the thing is, this isn't really a romance or a love triangle. The thing that's 4 stars about It Ends With Us for me is just the topic of the cycle of abuse and how it's handled. I think Colleen Hoover did a great job of handling it, because reading it, I kind of felt called out in like a good way. It starts with Lily, and she grew up with her father physically abusing her mother, and she kind of held resentment to her mother about that. We see that in the beginning, and it's kind of the thing that we ask all women that are put in abusive situations, like, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you get out of there? Especially if the woman is a mother, then they're like, why didn't you get your kids out? Like, how selfish of you. And honestly, I didn't even realize I thought that way until Lily in this book gets married to Ryle, and then the first action that Ryle does that's close to abuse, she does it so well because it's almost like he did it, but you immediately make excuses for it because you're like, okay, no, that wasn't really it though. And it's so easy, and she excuses it away, and it's so easy to believe her until the second incident, and then that leads to a third incident. And then as it goes on, you're like, wait, if we just like called him out at the first time, but it's like the first time really was an accident, but it wasn't. And so it's talking about the cycle of abuse, of her abuse that she witnessed when she was a child, and then the abuse that she's now facing. And it just kind of calls the reader to empathize with Lily instead of being judgmental towards her. So I rated it a 4 stars because she handled the topic really, really well. Other than that, I don't really love the Colleen Hoover book, if that makes sense, but 4 stars for this. I am tearing apart my bookshelf for this video, and I don't love it because now I have to put all the back. Also, my bookshelf is a mess because I got a bunch of new books and I have no idea where to put them, so they're just there and it's not pretty, so don't look at it. Second book of the year was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I knew that name, I don't know why I had to check. The Inheritance Games, this is the first book in a trilogy. It is about Avery Graham's, and she is mysteriously invited to this billionaire's funeral, and then she finds out that she's written in his will, even though she's never met him, and by earning all of his money, she realizes that he disinherited his entire family. And the catch for her to keep the money is she has to live with the family that got ripped off, and they don't like her very much. He has 4 good-looking, charming grandsons, which is great. And there is a love triangle in this book, but the main part of it isn't really the romance. The main part of it is kind of like a mystery thriller, kind of trying to solve the answer of why she has all this money now. This book I gave a 4 stars because it set up, it was a little slow in the beginning trying to set up the world building, but then after that it was very short chapters, very fast paced, which I liked, and it kept my attention, so 4 stars for this. Next we have Queen of Nothing. It was the shortest book I read all year. It's the 3rd and final book in the Cruel Prince series. Honestly, it was mid. A lot of people that love the Cruel Prince series absolutely love this book. I was bored about page 180, and then I started skimming to the very end, and because I was skimming like a 1/4 of the book, it wasn't very satisfying when I got to the end, so I gave this one a 3 stars because I didn't want to be too critical, like 2.5, 3 stars for this one. This book, however, I will be critical of. The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chosky. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. So it's a heist of 6 thieves, I believe. It was a long time and it wasn't really that good, so that's why I don't remember how many characters there were. It's in Paris and it has a very, very interesting world building because it's our world but just different history, and it's just this heist, which sounds really, really cool, so I don't know how the author messed this up. I think the problem is she made such intricate characters, but she felt the need to really like push the fact that they're unique in every single scene. Like there was like one guy and he was like nerdy and an inventor, And every single time he talked, she had to describe that he was like holding a screwdriver, or that he was like pushing up his glasses because he's nerdy, or just like constantly. Or there was like another girl, let me find her name because I loved her name, Zofia. Like Zofia, she's honestly kind of like the other guy. She was very, very intelligent, a little quirky, a little odd, but was constantly pushing the fact that she was quirky and odd in every single thing she did. And it was the worst whenever all 6 of them were together, because the main character would look at the other 5 and then describe their personalities all over again. We get their idiosyncrasies now. Like, move on. Just say that this character said this and then move on. Not saying like this character said this in this certain way because they're a nerd, or because they do this, or because they're this. So I actually DNF'd it, so no scale for that one. They don't get stars. It was DNF'd. After that, I read Heartbones by Colleen Hoover because I had yet to realize that I don't actually like Colleen Hoover's writing. Then after I actually like gave myself a week to really think about it, I changed it to a 3 stars. The plot twist was good. The romance was pretty believable. I really liked the main character, but other than that, there's nothing about her writing that really stands out to me. The ending was about as satisfying as the author made it, but because she chose to put the plot twist in that she did, it's very difficult to make a good ending for this story. So 3 to 5 stars. Now for the biggest disappointment of the year, and the book that gave me trust issues with other people recommending it so much. Spanish Love Deception. I'm so mad about how much time I spent with this book. I remember I was early in Barnes & Noble. I had this book and 2 others in my hand, and I could only get a certain amount. So I put down The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is such a good book. I put that one down and bought this one instead. Worst decision of the year. It's enemies to lovers, and then she needs a date for a wedding. He says yes, but he doesn't really give a reason why other than the fact that he thinks she's pretty, I guess. That's the thing. I don't get why they like each other other than the fact that they think that they're attractive. And then there was like a weird thing where she went on a diet for her sister's wedding because her ex was going to be there, but then instead of going on a diet, she just didn't eat. So I was just reading pages of her starving herself, and then she passed out and she like fainted, and then he came to the rescue, and then it just was never talked about again. Like, that's so random to just throw in there. I didn't like that. Catalina, main character, I didn't like. Aaron Blackford, Aaron Blackford. I'm just gonna keep saying it and see if it sounds right. Aaron Blackford? I'm gonna say Aaron Blackford. Yeah, everyone says that he's just like best male character in a romance. He's like interesting and charming and funny and all this stuff. He just didn't seem like a real person. It was very apparent that he was a fictional character. He was just a bunch of adjectives thrown together with black hair, and that was just it. So I didn't really believe their story, and I didn't really believe their romance. 2 stars. We Hunt the Flame. Did not finish. This book was very boring. I can't even remember anything that happened in this book, so I'm not going to say anything about it. Moving on. Gathering of Shadows. This book was actually really, really good. It's by V.E. Schwab. It's ridiculously long, a little over 500 pages. Even though it was over 500 pages and it took me a while to read, it was very fast-paced and very, very entertaining. I love the 2 main characters. I even love the side characters. Just like every detail of this book was very, very interesting. It had royalty, it had magic, it had pirates, it had this big tournament, it had enemies to lovers romance. It was good all around. I think I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I'm gonna say 5. That's the first 5. Confessed by Colleen Hoover. This is the last Colleen Hoover book I read, and I hope it's going to be the last I ever read. I think I was just really trying to convince myself that if I read enough of her books, I'd like her writing. But I just don't. I don't like the hype. I'm not a Colleen Hoover stan. It's about a girl, Autumn. She goes to work at this guy's art studio, and he makes all of his art about confessions that people anonymously write to him. Now actually I like this because it actually has the pictures that he paints. So I liked that. But other than that, there was like this weird love triangle thing that came out of nowhere, but it wasn't really a love triangle because she wasn't into the second guy. But the fact that the second guy was even into her was really weird. I think Colleen Hoover just writes her female main characters as very blank and boring, and then just makes every man in love with her for some reason, and then she just gets to pick whatever she wants. 3 out of 5 stars. 2.5 out of 5 stars for this. Next is The Deal by L. Kennedy, the off-campus series. This set feminism back like 50 years. I don't understand any of the characters. I don't understand why they act the way they do. It's so inaccurate. I don't know. I'm a college kid in 2023, so maybe it was different 10, 12 years ago, but just it was so not realistic. I don't know who she researched to write these college characters, but I didn't like Hannah. I didn't like whoever the guy is. Garrett. I didn't like Hannah. I didn't like Garrett. I didn't like them together. I didn't like them when they hated each other. Their banter wasn't good. I didn't really buy the romance. I didn't like any of it. Well, that's an exaggeration. I liked parts of it, which is why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars instead of a 1 or 2. So 3 out of 5 for this one, but I still wouldn't recommend. After that, I wanted to get back into a YA fast-paced series, so I picked up the second book in the Hawthorne trilogy, the Hawthorne Legacy, which is the sequel to the Inheritance games. This book was a 5 out of 5 stars. It was even better than the second one because we already knew the situation, we knew the world building, we already had this like love triangle built up, so it was just like from the get-go right into the mystery, right into the adventure. I loved the characters, I loved the banter, I loved the interaction. I definitely recommend this one over The Deal. This one I picked up because every other book that I've read this year I saw off of TikTok or got recommended to me on a YouTube video. This is one that I'd never heard of on any social media platform, and I was interested in that because I read the back. Maybe this is actually a really good book, it just didn't get its like TikTok debut. The Mysterious Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. This book was really fun and lighthearted. It was about pirates, it was about... oh, I annotated this, that's fun. It was about feminism in the 1800s, which was really, really funny because the main character was very, very proper and ladylike, but she was also a pirate. Cecilia. The main character was Cecilia, and she is an apprentice to her grandmother, who is a member of the Society of Lady Scoundrels, which are women that are pirates. It was really, really interesting because she was kind of a morally gray character in the fact that she was impressed when people like tried to kill her, or her friends were thieves and assassins and pirates. So the things that we would think are bad, they are impressed by. So she was just spent the book trying to impress the society, and then the society gets themselves in trouble. So then she teams up with a guy who literally tried to kill her, this guy. The first time in the book, tried to kill her and her grandmother, teams up with them so that they can save the other ladies in the society. This book was just very, very funny and goofy, so 4 to 5 stars. After that, I went straight back to the TikTok recommendations, and I picked up Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This was a lot different than the fun, lighthearted other one that I got. It was still fun, but it was a lot heavier topics. This book is all over YouTube, so I'm not even going to begin to say the plot because probably everyone knows this. After I read this, I immediately wanted to go into the sequel and then proceeded not to, and I'm not really sure why, but I now have the sequel because I asked for it for Christmas. So that is what I'm going to be reading in 2023. And I wouldn't be surprised if I finished the whole Addicted Calloway series before 2024 because that's how good the writing is. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars only because Lo got on my nerves a little bit. I know that everyone loves Lo, but he got on my nerves a little too much. After the Spanish love deception disaster, I finally picked up The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now this book is like classic 1950s Hollywood starlet, and I can see this book being turned into a movie, and I can see the Oscars just like eating up this movie. This is a really, really good story. If you ever watched the Netflix miniseries Hollywood, God, I love that show, but that's the energy that this has. So it follows Evelyn Hugo, who is very, very much Marilyn Monroe-esque, this like starlet of Hollywood, and everyone is so obsessed with her like charisma and her like mysterious, and she's beautiful and she's in all these movies, so everyone is obsessed with her social life, and it shows that she kind of like manipulates people in the film industry. She manipulates people in the media. She's not necessarily a good person, but she's very, very entertaining to read about. I almost gave this a 5 stars, but the one thing that made me drop it down to 4 was, again, the love interest in this annoyed me so much. The love interest in this, I can't say who the actual love interest is because I don't want to spoil it, but they are very hypocritical. After that, I got this really, really bad YA, just like, I feel like I've already read all the good YA series, but I really, really wanted like YA, like writing, just easy, fast-paced, easy to get into. And that's whenever I googled, I was like, okay, what series is kind of like the Selection series? I literally typed that into Google, and that's when I found this. Frostblood by Ellie Blake. I've never heard anyone talk about this book series, trilogy, but I really think that everyone should read it. It's perfect for like middle school, high school age, or really any age if you really want to find like easy to read, easy to get into writing, and a really, really good, fun story. It's not necessarily fun because it kind of starts out sad, but it's like a good world building, it's good dystopian, it's very similar to the like Hunger Games era when everyone was obsessed with YA dystopia. So it's the world of Frostbloods, who are people with magical powers, like magical ice powers. And the main character is a fireblood, meaning she can control fire. So it's the story of her. She is first kidnapped by rebel Frostbloods that want to use her to overthrow the kingdom. After that, she's actually kidnapped by the king that she's trying to overthrow, and she's put into a Fireblood tournament of when Firebloods have to battle against Frostbloods to try to win their freedom. But the thing is, the tournament's just for entertainment because they kind of rig it so the Firebloods always die. So she kind of has her rebel friends on the outside that she's like hoping that she can get in contact with, and she's also trying not to die in this tournament. And she also wants to overthrow the king that's watching the tournament. There's I love the main character in this, and I also love the enemies to lovers romance happening in here. It's just cute. It's a good read. After that, I went immediately into, is this Nightblood? Yeah. After that, I went immediately into Fireblood, the sequel. This is when we get a love triangle. There's a Fireblood prince slash pirate that comes in. I didn't even say what I rated this. 4 to 5 stars because I don't really love the beginning. The first book in a trilogy kind of suffers from being a little slow in the beginning because of the world building. This, however, was a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the new characters and the new world they introduced. And this was also a 5 out of 5 stars because I love the way that it was wrapped up. I just can't say much because I don't want to spoil it. But the Frostblood series by Ellie Blake, I 100% recommend. After that, I was able to read a new release book from my favorite author of all time, Stephanie Garber. She wrote the Car of Ultra trilogy that I read in high school, and then after that she wrote a spin-off series with my favorite character, Jax, the Prince of Hearts. So this book, Once Upon a Broken Heart, actually follows Jax. He's not the main character, but he kind of steals the show. The main character is Evangeline Fox, and she is very much like Alice from Alice in Wonderland. I like her personality. She's different as a female main character. She kind of embraces being feminine, and she embraces being a little immature and a little childish because the world that she's in is very, very magical. And she kind of finds herself in a predicament in this new world, and then Jax comes in to help her, but the thing is, Jax is not necessarily the character that you can trust. So she begins to work with him. There's betrayal, there's hints of romance, there's mystery, there's plot twist, there's just a lot of really good stuff. This is a 5 out of 5 stars for me. After that, I read A Conjuring of Light, which is the 3rd book in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab's writing, and I loved the first 2 books, even though they were difficult to get through. This one was impossible to get through. I DNF'd at page like 300. Because the plot wasn't bad, it was just taking absolutely forever. It was like a road that you were taking every single detour on. And I couldn't get through it, and it was going to put me in a reading slump, and I didn't want to be in a reading slump, so I DNF'd it at 300 pages. So I have no idea how this trilogy actually ends, but I don't really care. After that, I read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It was good. It wasn't bad. I'd say that the setup was very different. The world building was very similar to a lot of other things that I've read, but the main character herself was different. Yeah, she's just different. The plot twist I kind of guessed at already, so that didn't really strike me as anything. So it wasn't like great, but I had a good time reading it and I enjoyed it and I would recommend it, so I gave it a 4 to 5 stars. After that, I read Serpent and Dove. This book was actually really good. It was very different than anything else I've ever read. It follows the story of a witch who is kind of forced to, by arranged marriage, to marry a witch hunter, and the witch hunter does not know she's a witch. So she's trying to hide her identity from the person she's married to, because if he found out, he would kill her. So it's very funny. They're just kind of like stuck together. They don't necessarily like each other. And then she knows something and we know something that would kind of like turn his world upside down, so they don't like each other. She has a valid reason. He doesn't really have a valid reason because he doesn't know yet. But it's just exploring the world of witches and witch hunters in Paris, France. The ending kind of got me, like it kind of went off in like a weird direction, but it like tied up very nicely, so I gave it a 4 to 5 stars. The next book is another book that kind of took TikTok by storm, and everyone just was recommending it right and left, and everyone was filming reading vlogs about it. And so then whenever I finally actually read it, it was very disappointing, and it's Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I thought this book was going to be absolutely amazing, but it was just so unrealistic to me that I couldn't even like buy into any of the ideas in the plot or the plot points, the characters and the way they behaved, because I grew up in a small town and this doesn't really give a realistic small town. It gave a very strange, like a small town that doesn't behave the way most small towns do, that also somehow have mafia ties. Like this Daisy book has gangsters and mafia in it. It's very strange. It was the cliche like two twins, and one of them is like cute and girly and good in school, and the other one's like angsty and sporty and stuff like that. The romance that was supposed to be enemies to lovers didn't really hit. Grumpy Sunshine, it wasn't really enemies to lovers, it was like didn't like each other to liking each other. But the Grumpy Sunshine wasn't great. I didn't really like her. I liked her personality fine. I didn't like his personality. He was like grumpy in just like an unlikable way, and then he never really changed that. So this was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I have a hard time giving things 2 stars. I don't like being too mean. The next book I read, I actually don't have with me. It's in my dorm at college because I've read this August. I think I read this like August, October. But it's the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber, and it is The Ballad of Never After. This book's amazing. 5 out of 5 stars. Can't say too much because it would spoil the other book, but it's a great world building, great plot, great characters, really fun, it's magical. I would recommend it to anyone, honestly. The ending, didn't love, but I think the ending set us up for a new book. If this ends up just being a duology, I'm gonna be so mad because the ending was so bad, or the ending was a good setup for the 3rd book. So we're gonna find out about that later. After that, I read Dance of Thieves because I saw Haley Pham on YouTube was just really hyping it up and saying how much she loved it. Couldn't get into it. I didn't really understand the enemies to lovers. I couldn't understand the world building. Nothing about it made sense to me. Couldn't get into it. DNF'd it at like 200 pages. Another YA fantasy. I can't get over YA fantasies. Another YA fantasy that I really, really loved that reminded me so much of The Selection, but in a good way, was The Jewel by Amy Ewing. So I got, that one is still at my dorm too, so I don't have it with me. But it's really, it's very interesting world building. It is written kind of like The Selection in a very simple, fast-paced, but easy to get into way. The Selection by Kira Cass mixed with A Handmaid's Tale, where it's in a world where not every woman is able to have a child. Women that are found capable of having children are tested, and then they're kind of put into slavery. They don't really have a choice. They're then sold like objects to wealthy families that can afford to have children. And there's even still rules that they can only have one boy and one girl because of the overpopulation and the terrible things they're doing to the environment, which is causing women to become infertile. These surrogates, the main character is Violet, and it's very YA because she's Violet because she has violet eyes, and that's so different. But I thought that was cute. I wasn't really annoyed with that. But they are kind of ranked in a very weird way that they don't really understand. And she is ranked out of 200 surrogates 197. So she's very, very valuable, but you don't really find out why she's valuable until later in the book when she's bought. When she's bought by this like really powerful duchess who is like a step down from being the queen. And whenever she's bought by the Duchess, she's immediately introduced to a terrible world of really bad people. And in that, she finds another person named Ash, who is kind of in a similar situation. He is kind of bought and sold, not like a person, but like property. So they relate over that, and then they fall in love. And then the ending of the book, I can't really say because it leads into the second book. But The Jewel I gave a 5 out of 5 stars, which led us to The White Rose by the same author. And this is just a continuing of Violet and Ash's story. Plot twist was really, really good. I didn't see a lot of this book coming. I couldn't predict a lot of it. I liked the direction it took towards the very, very end because they started involving a lot of other surrogates in this conspiracy to take down the system that they're fighting against. So this I think I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't as good as the first, but it's kind of like a middle buffer. So it was very necessary, but 4.5 stars. The last book of the year is going to be Shadow Me by Tahira Mafi. This book is very, very hyped up on TikTok. And honestly, I liked it, but I feel bad about liking it because I don't like it for the reasons other people like it for. I really like the main character. A lot of people complain about her personality. I like the actions. I think she's smart. I think the stuff that she does is intelligent. The things that she does is very relatable because if I was put in that situation, I'd do the same thing that she does, but people complain about her. People love the series for Adam Warner, who's the villain but is going to become a love interest later. I didn't like him at all. Like, not even like in a Draco Malfoy, low-key bad boy kind of way. He was just annoying. He was like a Joffrey from Game of Thrones kind of annoying. Like, I didn't get the appeal there. The one I really liked was Adam, who I know because of other people have told me that he doesn't turn out to be a good guy in the end. Like, and a lot of people say that they even find him annoying in the first book, but I really liked him in the first book. I liked that he like was able to take care of her because Juliet in the first book, she's in a very, very fragile mindset and she's in danger a lot because of this dystopian world where she has this like strange power. Whenever she touches someone, her touch is lethal and she is able to like kill people just with touch. So she believed all of her life that she's a monster. She's kidnapped by Aaron Warner, who is leading this terrible dictatorship, and he believes that he can turn her into a weapon. And then Adam, who technically works for Warner, is able to break her out, and then it's just their story of trying to run away. And then towards the end, they find a group of people who are also going against Adam Warner and his, I don't know what it's called, but it's like dictatorship. I really liked this book. It was very interesting. YA, I liked the writing style. Very, very entertaining. And I believe I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And that was the last book I read of 2022. That is all 27 books that I read in the year 2022. An important thing to note is that it doesn't matter if you read 100 books or if you just read one book this year. As long as you are continuing to enjoy reading and you're reading because that's something that you like, then good for you. It's really easy to get caught up in numbers. It's easy to get caught up in that, but at the end of the day, the numbers don't matter. It's the fact that you're still enjoying to read and you're still like encouraging this healthy habit. But just remember, at the end of the day, reading is something to be so, so thankful for, that we are even able to have, and be thankful that we have this book community on YouTube. But that's the end of my spiel. So happy reading in 2023 and Happy New Year. Bye. I don't want to put all of this back now.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you.